In a quiet town, there was a small school that many people overlooked. It wasn't special in the way some schools were. It didn't have fancy programs or an award-winning sports team. The students here were simple, and most of them had regular lives. The school was known for one thing, though: the janitor. He was an older man who worked hard every day to keep the school clean. He wasn't flashy, didn't wear anything special, and was never the center of attention. But there was something about him. He was always polite, always cheerful, and always had a story or a smile for anyone who would listen. His daughter, on the other hand, was someone few people paid much attention to. She was always in the background, moving through the halls quietly, just like her father. She didn't stand out in any particular way. Some students might have noticed her because she often helped her father carry his cleaning supplies or ran errands for him. She was the janitor's daughter, and because of that, most of the students didn't think much about her. After all, she didn't seem like the kind of person who would stand in front of the class and give a speech, or sing in the school talent show, or take part in any of the events that usually got the attention of the more popular kids. Maria, however, was someone who loved to laugh. She had a kind heart and could find joy in even the smallest things. Whenever she would laugh, it was like the whole room was filled with warmth. It wasn't a loud or over-the-top laugh. It was soft but infectious. A laugh that made everyone who heard it smile, even on the toughest days. Most of the students didn't know much about her other than the fact that she was the janitor's daughter, and she always seemed to be in a good mood. But there was something special about Maria that no one could see, except for the people who really took the time to look. Behind her laughter, behind the kindness, there was an incredible talent. Maria had a gift for singing, and not just any kind of singing. She could captivate anyone who heard her voice. It wasn't something she shared with many people. In fact, only a few ever got to hear her sing at all, and those few people were always amazed at how beautiful her voice was. It wasn't just the sound of her voice that made her special. It was the emotion she could bring into every song. When Maria sang, it was like she poured her heart into every note. It wasn't something that could be easily ignored. One day, while Maria was quietly humming a tune while cleaning, a teacher happened to walk by. The teacher stopped for a moment, not expecting to hear what they did. The song Maria was singing wasn't loud, but it was pure and soft, almost like it was made for that moment. The teacher stood there, quietly listening, captivated by the beauty of the sound. For a brief moment, it felt like the world had stopped. The teacher, who was used to hearing the usual school noise, children running, laughing, talking, couldn't believe what they were hearing. When Maria finished, the teacher didn't say anything at first. They didn't want to interrupt the moment. The teacher, however, couldn't forget what they had just heard. Over the next few days, they found themselves thinking about Maria's voice. It was as though the song had touched something deep inside them. Finally, after thinking about it for a while, the teacher decided to approach Maria. They didn't want to embarrass her, but they knew that talent like hers shouldn't stay hidden forever. The teacher gently told Maria how amazing her voice was, how they had been impressed by what they heard. Maria blushed, a little embarrassed, but also a bit curious. Maria had always been shy about showing her talents, and she had never thought much about performing in front of anyone. She was comfortable just cleaning the halls and making sure everything was in order. But that moment, that simple comment from the teacher, started to make her wonder. Could she do something more with her talent? Could she share it with others? Or was it better to keep it to herself? It was a question she would have to answer soon, because an opportunity was coming that would change everything. The school year was moving along, and things were beginning to feel just like they always had. The students went about their daily routines. The teachers did their best to make sure the classes were interesting, and the janitor continued his work, cleaning and making sure the school was neat and tidy. Maria, though still mostly in the background, continued helping her father and doing her best to bring joy to the halls with her laughter. It was during one of the regular school meetings that something unexpected happened. The principal stood in front of the school during an assembly, announcing that the annual school talent show was coming up. It was an event that students looked forward to each year, and while some students were quick to sign up, others hesitated. Maria had always been someone who stayed in the background. The thought of standing in front of so many people made her nervous. She had always been content to just go about her work without attracting attention. But the teacher who had heard her sing before had a different idea. After the announcement, the teacher approached Maria again. This time, they had a new suggestion. "Why don't you sign up for the talent show?" the teacher asked, with a gentle smile. "I know you have an incredible voice, and I'm sure the others would love to hear you." Maria was taken aback. She had never even thought about performing in front of others. The idea made her stomach turn. What if people laughed at her? What if she messed up? She had never done something like this before, and the fear of failure weighed on her mind. But as the teacher looked at her with encouragement in their eyes, something inside Maria began to change. She could feel a small spark of courage. Maybe it was time for her to step out of her comfort zone. The teacher's words stayed with her as the days passed. At night, Maria would think about it, running through different scenarios in her mind. She pictured herself on stage, singing in front of a crowd. She wondered how people would react. Would they be kind? Would they understand how important this was to her? Slowly, a quiet excitement began to grow. Maybe this wasn't just about singing. Maybe it was about showing people who she really was, not just the janitor's daughter, but someone with a voice that deserved to be heard. After a few days of thinking it over, Maria made up her mind. She would sign up for the talent show. But still, there was that lingering fear. Would she be good enough? What if people didn't like her performance? Despite these worries, Maria decided to push through. The teacher had given her the confidence to try, and she wasn't going to let her fears hold her back. The day arrived for students to sign up, and Maria nervously stood in line. When it was her turn, she took a deep breath and wrote her name on the list. There it was, her name, next to the word singing. A rush of excitement mixed with nervousness washed over her, but she held on to the idea that this was her chance. She was about to step into a whole new world, one where she was not just the janitor's daughter, but someone with a talent that deserved attention. As the days leading up to the talent show went by, Maria practiced every chance she got. She would sing quietly in the empty halls after school, making sure to perfect every note. Her father, who had no idea what she was planning, would sometimes stop by and ask if she needed help carrying her supplies, or if she wanted something to eat. He could tell something was different about her, but she didn't tell him yet. She was still nervous, still unsure of herself, and she wasn't ready to share her secret just yet. But one afternoon, as Maria was practicing a song in the hallway, her father passed by, just as the teacher had done weeks ago. He stopped, listening. He had heard his daughter hum before, but this was different. There was a depth to her voice that he had never noticed. He stood there for a moment, amazed. When Maria finished, she turned to find him standing behind her. She was startled, but the smile on his face gave her a sense of peace. "You have an incredible voice," he said, his voice filled with pride. Maria's heart warmed, and for the first time, she felt a real sense of confidence. Her father believed in her, and now, maybe she could believe in herself too. This was the first step in something much bigger. The day of the talent show arrived faster than Maria had expected. The school gym was buzzing with excitement as students lined up backstage, getting ready to perform. There was an air of nervousness mixed with excitement everywhere. Some of the students were experienced performers, while others, like Maria, had never done anything like this before. It felt like the world was watching, and Maria's nerves began to build up again. She had spent the last few days practicing in the empty halls and at home, but now that she was here, standing behind the curtain, she felt an overwhelming wave of fear. She hadn't told anyone other than the teacher and her father that she was going to sing, so there was a part of her that feared being laughed at. She wondered if anyone would even care about her performance. After all, she was just the janitor's daughter, someone no one had ever really noticed before. Maria stood there backstage, staring at the dark gym through the curtains. Her heart raced as she could hear the applause and cheers from the audience after each performance. She wondered if she was making a mistake. What if she didn't live up to the expectation? What if she froze on stage? But then, she remembered her father's words, how proud he had been of her. She remembered the teacher's encouragement, and the fact that she had made it this far. Her hands were shaking, and she could feel the sweat on her palms. But there was something inside her that refused to back down now. She had made a choice to do this, and there was no turning back. She took a deep breath, calming herself. It was time to face her fears, to show everyone who she was. The host called out the names of the performers, and when it was finally Maria's turn, her stomach fluttered. She could hear her own heartbeat pounding in her ears as she walked up to the stage. The spotlight was bright, almost blinding, but as she stepped into the light, she could feel a sense of peace settle over her. For a moment, everything felt still. She looked out into the audience, and though she couldn't see many faces clearly, she could feel the anticipation in the air. Taking a deep breath, Maria began to sing. Her voice was soft at first, but it filled the room with a warmth that no one had expected. She closed her eyes, focusing on the music, allowing the words to flow from her heart. As she sang, something magical happened. The audience, which had been talking and shifting in their seats, fell silent. Maria's voice had captured their attention, and for the first time, they were all focused on her. The song she chose wasn't just any song. It was something that had always resonated with her, a song about overcoming fear and finding strength in moments of doubt. As she sang the lyrics, she could feel her own fear begin to melt away. With every note, she felt more and more connected to the music and to herself. It was like she was finally revealing a side of herself that no one had ever seen before. The longer she sang, the more confident she became. Her nerves started to fade as she lost herself in the music. For the first time in her life, she wasn't just the janitor's daughter. She was someone with a story, someone with a gift. The audience was no longer just watching. They were feeling what she felt, experiencing the same emotions she was pouring into the song. It wasn't just a performance anymore. It was a moment of truth. As the last note of the song hung in the air, there was a pause. The room was completely silent. For a second, Maria was unsure if anyone had even moved or blinked. But then, the silence broke. The applause was sudden and overwhelming. It was louder than anything Maria had ever heard. People were cheering, clapping, and some even stood to their feet. The noise filled the room, and Maria stood there, breathless. She couldn't believe it. She had done it. She had stepped out of her comfort zone and done something that scared her, and the response was more than she could have ever hoped for. As she walked off the stage, she felt a mix of emotions, relief, joy, and a deep sense of accomplishment. She had not only faced her fears, but she had also shared something truly special with everyone in that room. When she walked backstage, the teacher who had encouraged her was waiting for her, a big smile on their face. "You were incredible," they said. "I knew you had it in you." Maria's heart swelled with pride. In that moment, she realized that it wasn't just about the applause or the recognition. It was about believing in herself and doing something that made her feel alive. It was about showing the world that she was more than just the janitor's daughter. She was someone with a voice, with a story, and with the ability to make people believe in her. The talent show wasn't just a performance, it was the beginning of something new for Maria. After the talent show, everything changed for Maria. What started as a simple performance, something she had done to face her fears, had turned into something much bigger. The reaction from the audience was overwhelming, and it was clear that people had noticed her in a way they never had before. She had done something extraordinary, and for the first time in her life, she felt seen. At school, things were different. The students who had once ignored her or dismissed her as just the janitor's daughter now treated her with a new kind of respect. Some of them even came up to her, complimenting her on her voice, telling her how amazing she was. Maria had never experienced this kind of attention before. She didn't know how to handle it, but it felt good. People were looking at her as someone with potential, not just the girl who cleaned the halls. It was a strange feeling, and a part of her wasn't sure if she liked it. After all, she had always been content with her quiet life, never wanting to stand out too much. But as time went on, she started to realize that maybe standing out wasn't such a bad thing. Her father, too, was different. He had always been proud of her, but now there was a sparkle in his eyes whenever he spoke about her. He told her that he had never been more proud, and every time she performed or shared her singing, he would smile, a soft but proud smile. Maria could tell that he was happy for her, but there was also something else, something she hadn't noticed before. Her father, who had always worked quietly in the background, had always been the one to make others feel important. Now he felt important too. His daughter, the girl who had always been in the shadows, was now someone to be proud of. This, Maria realized, was something they both shared. Her journey to self-discovery had also brought him into the light in a way he hadn't expected. As the weeks went by, Maria found herself getting more and more attention, but not all of it was positive. There were whispers among the students, some of them wondering why she had waited so long to share her talent. Others made snide remarks, questioning how someone who was just the janitor's daughter could have such a gift. It was hard for Maria to ignore the negativity, but she tried her best. She told herself that this was part of the process, that when you stand out, there would always be people who didn't understand. Still, Maria couldn't shake off the feeling that she didn't quite fit into the new world that had opened up to her. She had never been the type to want attention, and now it felt like it was being thrust upon her. She missed the days when she could just blend into the background, when her laughter and her kindness were enough to make a difference. Now, it seemed like everyone expected more from her. People wanted her to keep performing, to keep singing, to keep showing off her talents. It felt like there was pressure to be something she wasn't ready to be. But as the days passed, she started to find a balance. She realized that she didn't have to let the fame or attention change who she was. She could still be the person she had always been, the girl who loved to laugh, who helped her father, who cared for the small things that made life special. Singing, performing, and sharing her talent didn't have to take away from that. It could be an extension of who she was, not a transformation into something she didn't recognize. One day, after school, Maria was sitting in the park near her home, thinking about everything that had happened since the talent show. It felt like so much had changed in such a short time. As she sat there, she noticed a group of younger kids nearby, sitting on the grass and talking. They were laughing and playing, and she could hear their voices in the air. Without thinking, Maria stood up and walked over to them. She didn't know why she did it, but when she approached them, they smiled at her. One of the kids shyly asked, "Aren't you the girl who sang at the talent show?" Maria smiled and nodded, feeling a little nervous. The kids didn't seem interested in asking for an autograph or anything like that. Instead, they just wanted to talk to her, to hear more about the girl who had stepped out from behind the shadows and shared something beautiful with the world. In that moment, Maria realized that it wasn't about being famous or being in the spotlight. It was about sharing her gift with others, connecting with them in a way that made them feel something. The laughter, the joy, the excitement that had filled the gym during her performance wasn't about her singing. It was about the connection she had created with the people around her. That was the real gift, not the applause or the attention, but the ability to make others believe in themselves, just like she had believed in herself that day. Maria went back to her quiet life, but with a new perspective. She still cleaned the halls, still helped her father, and still laughed as she always had. But now, she had a voice. One that would carry not just through the hallways of the school, but into the hearts of the people around her. And with that voice, she could make them believe. As time passed, Maria began to adjust to her new life. The attention from the talent show had brought many changes, and while some were difficult to handle, others made her feel like she had truly found her place. People at school treated her differently now, not in a way that made her uncomfortable, but in a way that made her realize how much she had grown. They no longer saw her just as the janitor's daughter. They saw her as someone with potential, someone who had something valuable to offer. However, with this newfound attention came a certain pressure. It wasn't that Maria didn't want to share her talent. She did, and she loved singing. But there were moments when it felt like everyone expected her to always perform, to always be the girl with the amazing voice. It was as if she had become a character in a story that wasn't fully hers. She didn't mind singing for others, but she didn't want to be defined by just that talent alone. She was still Maria, the girl who loved to laugh, who found joy in the small moments, and who cherished her time with her father. Maria was realizing that being noticed wasn't the same as being understood. While people admired her singing, they didn't know the whole story. They didn't know the struggles she had faced or the quiet moments she had shared with her father. It was these moments, these simple parts of her life, that meant the most to her. She didn't want to lose sight of that. One afternoon, while she was sitting in the park again, lost in her thoughts, her father came to find her. He had been busy, with work all day, but he had noticed that Maria seemed distant lately. He sat down next to her, and without saying anything at first, he simply placed his hand on her shoulder. Maria looked at him, and he smiled softly, as if to remind her that everything was okay. "I've been thinking," he said quietly. "You've been getting a lot of attention lately, and I can tell it's making you feel different. But I want you to remember something. You don't have to be anything other than yourself. You've always been enough just as you are." Maria looked at him, her heart swelling with gratitude. She knew that her father had always been proud of her, but hearing those words from him made her feel even more grounded. He wasn't telling her to stop singing or to ignore the opportunities that had come her way. He was telling her to stay true to herself, no matter what. "Thanks, Dad," Maria said, her voice a little shaky. "I've been thinking the same thing. I love singing, but it's hard when everyone expects you to always be that person. I don't want to lose myself in all of this." Her father nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. "You won't lose yourself," he said. "You're the same person you've always been. You've just got more people who see you now, and that's a beautiful thing. But don't ever forget that it's your heart, your kindness, your laughter. Those are the things that make you truly special." Maria smiled, feeling lighter than she had in days. Her father's words helped her realize that she didn't have to choose between being who she was and embracing her talent. She could do both. She didn't have to be defined by what others expected from her. Over the next few weeks, Maria found a way to balance everything. She continued to sing, but she also made sure to spend time with her friends, her family, and herself. She helped her father, laughed with her classmates, and enjoyed the quiet moments that she had once taken for granted. Maria realized that she didn't need to be in the spotlight all the time to be valuable. Her worth didn't depend on how many people admired her talent or how often she performed. It came from within, from the way she treated others, from the love she shared with her father, and from the joy she found in the small things. Slowly but surely, Maria started to find peace with her new life. She still sang when she felt like it, and the people around her still loved her voice. But now, she was more than just a performer. She was a friend, a daughter, and a person with her own story to tell. And with every note she sang, every smile she shared, Maria reminded herself and others that being true to who you are is the most important thing of all. The journey hadn't been easy, and there were still moments when Maria felt unsure of herself. But she knew that she was exactly where she was supposed to be, standing in the light, not as the janitor's daughter, but as someone who had a voice and a heart that could make the world believe in the magic of simple things. As the weeks continued to pass, Maria's life began to settle into a rhythm that felt more balanced. The buzz from her performance in the talent show hadn't faded, but she had learned to manage it. She wasn't running away from the attention, but she was no longer letting it define her either. People at school would still approach her, asking her to sing, complimenting her voice, but she was learning to say no when she needed to. It wasn't about shutting people out. It was about taking control of her own story. She realized that she didn't need to be a constant performer to be valued. One of the things that Maria had always cherished was her time with her father. Despite the new attention, she made sure to spend the evenings with him, helping him with his work and enjoying simple conversations. The two of them had always been close, but now there was something even more meaningful in their bond. Her father, who had once been just the janitor in the background, now carried himself with a new pride. It was like the world had recognized him too, simply because his daughter had shone a light on the love and care he had given her all those years. One afternoon, Maria found herself sitting in the quiet cafeteria, just staring out the window. She wasn't feeling sad or lonely. It was just a moment of reflection. She had come so far, yet sometimes it felt like the world around her hadn't changed as much as she had. Her classmates still had their cliques, their groups, and the social dynamics seemed just as complicated as before. Maria had always been a bit of an outsider, not because she was unwanted, but because she had never quite fit in with any one group. But now she realized that wasn't a bad thing. It wasn't about fitting in, it was about finding the people who saw her for who she truly was, beyond her voice or her father's job. As Maria sat there thinking, a group of younger students entered the cafeteria. They were laughing and chatting among themselves, but one of them caught sight of Maria. The girl hesitated for a moment, then made her way over to Maria's table. "Are you the girl who sang at the talent show?" the younger student asked, shyly, her eyes wide with curiosity. Maria smiled, feeling a little embarrassed but also proud. "Yes, that's me," she said softly. "I loved your singing," the girl exclaimed, sitting down next to her. "It was so beautiful. You made me feel things I didn't even know I could feel." Maria's heart warmed at the compliment. She wasn't used to being on the receiving end of such genuine praise. It felt different from the applause she had gotten at the show. It was more personal, more real. "Thank you," Maria replied, her voice full of appreciation. "I'm glad it meant something to you." The girl smiled back at her, and Maria realized that this was the kind of impact she wanted to have. It wasn't about impressing everyone or being the best. It was about making a real connection, about reaching people on a deeper level. She wasn't just a singer anymore. She was someone who could make others feel understood, someone who could make them believe in the beauty of their own emotions. As the lunch period ended and the students began to leave, Maria stood up to go, back to her next class. She felt lighter than she had in a long time. She hadn't made any big announcements or done anything extraordinary, but in that simple conversation, she had made a difference. It was in these small moments that Maria realized the true power of her voice. It wasn't about performing on a stage or being recognized by everyone around her. It was about using her talent to reach out, to make others feel seen and heard. That was the gift she had to offer, and she understood that now more than ever. Later, that evening, when Maria and her father were sitting together in their small home, they spoke about the events of the day. Her father asked her how her day had been, and Maria smiled, sharing the story of her conversation with the young student in the cafeteria. Her father listened intently, and when she finished, he nodded thoughtfully. "You see, Maria, it's not the applause that matters. It's the impact you make on someone's heart. That's what will last." Maria felt a sense of peace settle over her as she listened to her father's words. She knew that he was right. The applause, the recognition, those things would come and go, but the connection she made, the way she could make people feel understood, would stay with her forever. That was what truly mattered. In the days that followed, Maria didn't stop singing, but she did stop feeling the need to perform for everyone. She sang when it felt right, when she wanted to share her gift with those who appreciated it, not because it was expected of her. She realized that she didn't have to be anything more than she already was. A girl with a kind heart, a beautiful voice, and a life filled with love and laughter. And that was enough. As time passed, Maria began to notice how much she had changed. The quiet girl who had once hidden in the background, helping her father with his janitorial work, was no longer the same person. She had discovered her own voice, not just in the literal sense, but in a much deeper, more meaningful way. Her voice now carried a sense of confidence, purpose, and understanding that she hadn't known before. One day, after school, Maria found herself sitting in the park, just watching the world go by. She had always enjoyed moments like this, quiet, peaceful, and filled with reflection. As she sat there, she thought about all that had happened in the last few months. It had been a roller coaster, filled with ups and downs, but she had come out of it stronger and more grounded. She thought about her performance at the talent show and how it had changed everything for her. The applause, the attention. It had all been overwhelming at first, but now it didn't seem so important. She had realized that the real value wasn't in the spotlight or the praise. The real value came from being true to herself, from embracing who she was and the talent she had to share with the world. Maria also thought about her father, the man who had always been her biggest supporter. He had never asked for anything in return for his hard work. He had raised her with love, showing her the importance of kindness and humility. She remembered the way he had looked at her after the talent show, the pride in his eyes. That moment had meant everything to her. Her father had always believed in her, even when she didn't believe in herself. And now, she wanted to make him proud in a way that went beyond just performing or singing. She wanted to show him that all the love he had given her had made her into someone who could make a real difference in the world. As she sat in the park, lost in thought, Maria saw a group of young students walking by. They looked at her, some of them smiling while others seemed to recognize her from the talent show. One of the students, a girl about her age, waved at Maria and approached her. "You're the one who sang at the talent show, right?" the girl asked. Maria smiled, feeling a little shy, but also happy to be recognized for something positive. "Yes, that's me," she replied. "I thought your voice was amazing," the girl said. "It made me feel like I could do anything. You really inspired me." Maria's heart warmed. She had never realized how much her singing had impacted others. She had just been sharing something she loved, but hearing someone else talk about how it had made them feel gave her a deeper understanding of the power of connection. It wasn't just about the performance, it was about the way music, and any form of expression, could touch someone's heart and make them believe in themselves. As the girl walked away, Maria thought about what she had said. "You really inspired me." That simple statement carried so much weight. Maria had never imagined that her voice, her laughter, and her willingness to be vulnerable could have such an effect on others. She realized that she didn't need to chase after fame or recognition. All she had to do was stay true to herself and keep sharing her gift. In doing so, she could continue to inspire others in ways she never expected. Later that evening, when Maria sat down to dinner with her father, she couldn't help but share the moment with him. She told him about the conversation she had with the student in the park and how it made her feel. Her father listened intently, a small smile on his face. "I always knew you had something special," he said. "But what makes you even more special is that you use it to make others feel something. That's the real gift, not just the talent, but the way you use it to help people." Maria smiled, feeling a sense of peace that she hadn't felt before. She had been so focused on the applause, on the attention, that she had forgotten what it really meant to have a gift. It wasn't about being the best or being seen by everyone. It was about the small moments, the connections, and the way she could touch someone's heart with just a song or a kind word. As the evening went on, Maria realized that her journey was just beginning. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew that she would continue to walk it with the same heart, the same kindness, and the same laughter that had gotten her this far. And with her father by her side, she knew that no matter where her path led, she would always have the strength to stay true to herself. Maria had learned that her worth wasn't defined by the applause or the recognition, but by the way she made others feel and the way she stayed true to the person she had always been. And that, she knew, was the most powerful thing of all.